The spoken word has always held a special place in the hearts of Russians. From the poetry recitations of Yevgeny Yevtushenko in the 1960s that filled stadiums to the inspired lyrics of Russian bards like Vladimir Vysotsky, Russians have sought not only beauty but also repose in artistic literary forms. This is unsurprising, given Russia's troubled political history over the centuries, which reached its height in the 20th century with the repressive Soviet era. I often say that rap is, first and foremost, poetry. So today I'll examine Russian rap from this literary angle and place it into a Russian political and cultural context. What sets rap apart from other literary forms in Russia is its place in time. It really took hold only in the 1990s, immediately after the fall of the Soviet Union. So one cannot really speak of rap as a genre influencing political events in the USSR. The first rap in Russia was entitled, unsurprisingly, Rap, from 1984 by the group Chas Pik, an unabashed ripoff of Sugar Hill Gang's Rapper's Delight from 1979, widely recognized as the first commercial rap tune ever. So I'm going to play these two just a little bit from, I have many clips and musical examples as we'll go through tonight, and I'll talk over them a little bit. I'll try to control the volume. By the way, this is the volume here. Yeah, that's right. To save a little bit of time. So, you all have heard Rapper's Delight, I hope.
Here's Wonder Mike, Hank, and Master G, the Sugar Hill Gang.
So what happened with Rapper's Delight is they took a disco tune by the group Chic. The song is Good Times, and we'll just keep going. And that's Wonder Mike, and there's also Big Bang Hank and Master G. And this was the first rap tune that made it into the top 40. It became a hit because it was the first time that rap kind of came to the American consciousness. Let's just wait to hear from Big Bang Hank here. That's Big Bang Hank. He died about 4 or 5 years ago. And this became a little bit popular, his rap right here, because he's said to have just stolen those rhymes from another rapper. His name was Grandmaster Caz, who's still alive. When you steal somebody's rhymes, you're biting their rhymes. That's the term that they would use. Well, it didn't take long for the Russians to figure out that this was an interesting thing to do. So this group Chas Pik, which was a big Soviet group in the 80s, they just ripped this off. Now you couldn't do a remix the way you can do today, where you just upload all the files and you just cut and paste and do all that and you have the same beat. They just had to listen and then they made the beat with instruments, you know, those things you used to play on that we had, and then they rapped. This isn't the greatest, this is not the greatest recording, but it's from YouTube. So this is just players playing instruments, and here's their beat, their bass. It's almost the same as Chic.
Конечно, добрый вечер. Мы рады каждой новой встрече. Чтобы добрый вечер стал, мы выходим в этот зал. Порой я не могу понять, что вам мешает танцевать.
Okay. So you can go to YouTube and find all of these things, of course. It was not until the 1990s that Russian rappers and rap groups such as Bogdan Titamir, Liki MC, Bad Balance, and Malchishnik became widely known in the former Soviet Union, and with them, the rap genre itself. The fit was perfect for Russia with its rich literary tradition and its strong history of performance art. But 1990s Russian rap simply copied American forms. The era of Vladimir Putin began on August 9th, 1999, when President Boris Yeltsin appointed him Prime Minister of Russia. On New Year's Eve of that year, Yeltsin resigned and Putin became acting president until his election to the presidency a few months later. Thus, for 20 years now, Putin has been the undisputed ruler of Russia, and during this period, Russia has seen tremendous growth. In the past few years, however, and especially after Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, it has also seen enormous tension between Putin and the Russian populace. This tension is also manifested in the work of several Russian rappers. More generally, one could also say that rap as a genre finally found its footing in Russia during Putin's reign and broke away from its blanket imitation of American artists that defined it in the 80s and 90s. One of the best known socially activist rappers today in Russia is Ivan Alexeyev. Ivan Alexeyev, whose hip-hop moniker is Noise MC. Noise began his musical studies in classical guitar at the age of 10 and was soon performing with various hip-hop artists. And by the time he was 20, he had already gained notoriety as a rapper. He is generally considered the best freestyle rapper in Russia, and comparisons with Eminem are frequent. Early on, his music was labeled controversial because of its explicit lyrics and political and cultural content, so he could therefore not get played on the radio. He then wrote his Song for the Radio rap in 2009, in which he satirized the situation. And this actually became quite a famous rap, one of his most famous from 2009. It's got a very poppy chorus, and he, explicitly says, "Oh, there's no drugs here, no profanities, nothing to ban me from the radio." But you can see in the video that he still pushes the envelope a little bit. You have the words in example 1 if you're interested.
Сделав посерьезней морду, я люблю свой рэп, потрясать аккорда. Назови меня попсой, а ты ни в чем хочешь. Слушать будешь все равно, я же знаю точно. Убирал купишь диск, друзьям не скажешь. Назови меня попсой, не а ты же скажешь.
Noise MC often voices his dissent from official Russian views. Official views of the Russian government. As is well known, there's been a strong surge in nationalism under Putin's tenure in office, and often this nationalism manifests itself in racist activity. One arena for racism in post-Soviet Russia is the soccer stadium. In specific, St. Petersburg Zenit, or Zenith, soccer team is usually considered the worst in Russia. In March 2011, in response to the first non-white player to play for the team, Roberto Carlos, a fan brandished a banana, a common racist meme against players of color playing in European soccer leagues. Noise MC's answer to this and other overt racist acts was Pushkinsky rap, or the Pushkin rap. Often considered the greatest Russian author of all times, Alexander Pushkin had a great-grandfather who was an African Moor. And by all accounts, Pushkin himself had fairly non-Russian physical traits and slightly dark skin. Noise MC uses this fact and this rap to answer the racist fans of Zenit in the Pushkin rap. Notice Dozh TV was the TV station that this was aired on. No longer exists. Putin took it down 4 or 5 years ago. This is example 2 in the handout.
Не рукотворный воздвиг меня признает великим и ученый, и ученик. Русский язык учить, не читая моих книг. Это дорога прямиком в тупик. Так откуда берутся
Те такие, что думают, будто расизм и Россия — это слова однокоренные. Значит, Путин против таких, как вы. So I'll try to go through the chorus of each song if I have the time. Noise's lyrics are decidedly anti-racist, and he challenges the overt racism of Zenith's fans in this rap. Noise is famous for his social activist songs, and it's worth mentioning that he has a massive following in Russia. This points to the fact that, in the face of a repressive vertical power structure in which freedom of speech is under attack and racist acts often go unpunished, there is a need for legitimate sources of information that deviate from official versions of events. Russian rap often bridges the gap between reality and the Russian government's retelling of an event. When asked about his anti-racist and anti-fascist songs, Noise said in a 2012 interview, quote, "It upsets me that these racist views are gaining popularity. I get the chance to hang out with many different people. Currently, it's not shameful to be a xenophobe or a racist, as if it's okay to think that way. Too much time has passed already. The generation that remembers World War II is gradually fading away. Also, there are concrete political figures who, through their actions, consciously or unconsciously, exacerbate the situation," close quote. Clearly, Noise MC considers Vladimir Putin to be one such figure, so one can call him an enemy of Russian power structures. Vasily Goncharov, known by his moniker Vasya Oblomov, is a Russian rapper whose lyrics are even more controversial than Noise MC's, and often challenge Putin directly, making him arguably Putin's worst rap enemy. His first mega hit as Oblomov, Magadan, was released in 2010 and won several awards. The song displays his keen sense of satire and humor as he ridicules many current memes of contemporary Russia. The song also, The song also represents his first foray into rap. Though his style can certainly be described as rap, he prefers the term songs of a conversational style, and he often mixes these songs with interesting and introspective musical soundtracks. I'll jump ahead a little bit here. This is in your handout, example 3. This was the song that put Vasya Oblomov on the map, and I'll get through the first chorus, Yedu v Magadan. As I think I told someone earlier today, we here in Tucson may be closer to Magadan than they are in Russia. It is actually, longitudinally speaking, it's actually east of Japan, Magadan is. And this song speaks to Russians' views of the provinces, gulags in the provinces. Yes, there was one of those in Magadan. And there's, in the chorus, you'll see this this person sitting in a bar. This is somewhat autobiographical for Vasya Oblomov. He's saying, I was just a lounge lizard playing in this bar, and then there's kind of this drunk Russian guy who's a bit of a bandit who comes and starts saying these things like, hey, who's singing that song? And it kind of spoke to Russians. This one reason why this song became so incredibly popular. I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit. I composed a song about how they closed the city off. I'm going to Magadan. So this is the chorus. And here's the drunk guy in the corner, bandit. I love that part because he ends by saying, "Песня дерьмо, конечно." The song's a piece of crap, obviously. But people seem to like it, so I'm going to play it, and this is kind of how he becomes famous in this song, by singing this song, I'm going to Magadan, like way, 11 time zones away from Moscow I'm going. Oblomov's songs deal with the many injustices in the Russian political system and the various peculiarities of Russian culture. 3 particularly contentious songs are those written by Oblomov and performed along with 2 famous political activists and television personalities, Ksenia Sobchak, and Leonid Parfyonov. The first, So Long Medvedev, is an open letter to then-President Dmitry Medvedev, which openly mocks him and the decision that allowed Putin to return to the presidency. The second is about Putin himself and is not so praiseful of the leader, which is to say quite enough about that song. While the third, Rap Prayer, is about the craziness surrounding the now famous Pussy Riot episode. On February 21st, 2012, 5 members of the punk rock collective Pussy Riot staged a mock concert in Moscow's Cathedral of Christ the Savior, demanding, among other things, the removal of then Prime Minister Vladimir Putin from power. The ensuing court battle and incarceration of 3 of the 5 and Putin's personal involvement in the case garnered worldwide media attention. This event put all Russian artists on notice. You can either play by the rules or go against them and face the consequences. I presume you've all heard of Pussy Riot, but I imagine that you've not all seen the clip of what put them in jail, of why they put them in jail. So here it is with an English translation. It starts with a Eastern Orthodox Ave Maria, which is actually from Rachmaninoff's Vespers. Bogorodica Deva, Putina Pragani, Putina Pragani. Virgin Mary, drive Putin out of power is what they're singing there. And then drops the punk beat where they sing more, and you can see the English here. I think it's important. So, not the greatest poetry, actually. I mean, it's hard to even sing. Bogorodica Deva stats feministka. It doesn't roll off the tongue so well. But that is, in fact, what happened on February 21st, 2012, and it took them about a week to incarcerate these 3 of the 5, 3 whom you saw there. 1 of whom got out of prison pretty quickly after that. And 2 of whom stayed in jail until, in an act of magnanimity, Vladimir Putin released them before the Sochi Olympics. Didn't want to have people in prison during those feel-good Olympic Games. Vasya Oblomov's response to all of this was a brilliant trio, again with Sobchak and Parfyonov, entitled Rap Prayer. So this is Punk Prayer, and Oblomov wrote Rap Prayer. The video begins. Oh, hang on. Oh, I think I was already there. Yes. This is right. The video begins with an Eastern Orthodox Ave Maria again, and 3 rappers dressed in black religious garb. The rap is addressed to the Holy Mother and simply goes through all of the events surrounding Pussy Riot. Let's take a little listen. Okay, let's try this here. A different Ave Maria, but an Ave Maria. This is on, I put a translation here. You might not be able to read that. So the handout example 4.
молебен в поддержку веры, сохраняя стабильность и чувство меры. Обломов, Парфенов, Ксения Собчак, Пресвятой Богородице посылают знак. Дорогая Богородица, обратите внимание, какие у нас происходят страдания. Всю зиму страна боролась с внешним врагом, было несколько митингов протеста и потом.
Группа особо опасных девушек в храме что-то кричала и топала ногами. Требовала срочно кого-то прогнать. Нам все это нужно, святая мать?
А как ополчились люди на патриарха? Из-за часов, из-за какого-то подарка. Его святейшество часов не наблюдает. Есть они или нет, он толком не знает.
Но злые блогеры призывают топить лодку вместе.
Злые блогеры стараются потопить лодку. Evil bloggers are trying to flip the boat over. So the evil blogger in this case is Alexei Navalny, Putin's main political opponent, who's constantly under house arrest and whose brother is in prison, not because he did anything, but purely as leverage so that Alexei Navalny behaves himself. As with any rap tune, there are numerous allusions to current events in this rap. For instance, the foreign enemy is the United States, while the someone from demanding immediately to drive someone out is Putin, since Pussy Riot was demanding his departure from government in their song. But, as Oblomov points out, he's simply commenting on what happened recently and is not making anything up. So, through his satire, Oblomov is able to address injustices in the Russian system. Pussy Riot challenged Putin directly, while Oblomov does so indirectly. This distinction represents the fine line that opposition artists must walk in contemporary Russia. In an interview with the BBC from 2014, Oblomov discussed the protests of 2012 when large numbers of Russians took to the streets to protest disputed elections. Here is my translation underneath. It might be hard to read the translation with the little video thing.
Донести свою точку зрения до власти имущих. Ну, то есть в этом же нет ничего противозаконного, выйти на митинг, сказать, что нам, мол, вот это не нравится, обратите на нас внимание. Те, кому не нравится, они существуют, собственно, мы здесь и так далее. Но вот, как это называется, разбудить человека, который притворяется в том, что он спит, невозможно. И таким образом выстроить отношения с нашей властью. И невозможно доказать ничего, потому что они отчаянно делают вид, что как бы, нас не замечают, что все это не так. То есть все как бы, митинги сложились к тому, что все вышли, помитинговали, типа, и все ждут, ну что же скажет президент. Президент говорит, да, никого не было, все было нормально. МВД насчиталось 100 человек, у нас все хорошо. И вот это превратилось в одной планы, как Сизифов труд. Камень в гору не заглянешь, и ситуация на самом деле очень печальная. И все, что происходит сейчас с моей родной страной, в которой я живу, родился и прожил всю свою жизнь, мне как бы категорически не нравится то, что то есть это угнетает и печально. И вот то, что происходит в частности в последние полгода, оно вот какой-то кошмарный сон.
And that, which has been going on for the last half year, has been a nightmare. So that was the annexation of Crimea he's referencing there. Just 1 second. A final recent song by Oblomov shows how he's developed. He often has alternate personas in his raps, and in Life's Complicated, he has 3, expressed in 3 different verses. Each persona complains about how Oblomov's songs have become so political, anti-Russian, pro-Ukrainian, and urges Oblomov to take an alternate path, like those from his breakout hit Magadan. So the 3 personas, we can only listen to the first one. I call this my brother-in-law Dima, who's a police officer in Tula. This is like, hey, what happened to all your good songs? Why are you doing all this political crap? Come on, go back, stop talking all this politics. The second persona is like my sister-in-law, Tanya. Like, we can change from inside. We don't want to protest. Our government's going to stop stealing. Let's work with the authorities and make things well. The third persona is, I'm calling the Marianne Williamson, just think positively. Just, it's self-help, it's just, everything's going to be fine. Just don't think about negative things. And that's the third persona in the third verse. We'll listen to the first verse here. And the chorus is sung by Andrei Makarevich, who's one of the most famous rockers, old school. He's got to be 75 now, I would say. His band was called Time Machine, Machina Vremeni. Very much a Bob Dylan type figure in Russia, but also an opposition figure to to Putin. So they've stripped him of a lot of his awards and distinctions because he's spoken out. He sings the chorus in this particular song. And example 5 in your handout has the words.
Послушай, Вася, ты скатился, где новые песни, где весь креатив. Ты раздобрел и походу спился, какой-то сплошной политический слив. А сейчас, Вася, нам надо сплотиться. У нас, очевидно, есть общий враг. Посмотри на Украину, смотрись в их лица. Хотеть в ЕС может только дурак. А ты, Вася, о Майдане мечтаешь. Хочешь опять развала страны? Успокойся, Вася, ты же не шаришь. Санкции плохие, но они не вредны. Тут дело принципа и подхода. Россия себя в обиду не даст. С 2014 года Крым стал нашим, поднялся Донбасс. А ты, как старая тупая бабка, не замечаешь очевидных вещей. Быть предателем — это гадко. Вот ответь мне, Вася, Крым он чей? И песенки твои совсем отупели. Ни ума, ни фантазии, одна только грязь. Езжай в Магадан, вали там ели. Великой России ты не нужен, Вася.
And this is Makarevich singing here.
И порой почти невозможное, то правдиво, то будто бы ложная. Жизнь сложная, сложная.
Мы обращаемся.
Okay. If Noise MC and Vasya Oblomov are Vladimir Putin's worst enemies in the world of rap, Putin's best friend among famous Russian rappers in Russia is Timur Yunusov, whose moniker is Timati. He is an artist in the party camp of hip-hop, and his lyrics are, for the most part, uncontroversial. Before the Russian presidential elections in March 2012, Timati famously filmed an election commercial in support of Putin's candidacy. And you can see a picture with Putin there, and you can also see him with Snoop Dogg here. He comes from money, Timati, and that money buys him access. Even more famously, Timati's support for Putin resulted in an invitation to a post-election party commemorating Putin's victory, at which only 40 such guests were invited. Timati's involvement in politics does not endear him to Russia's cultural elite, but it need be said that he, more than others, is a true hip-hop artist. By this I mean that he uses all available channels at his disposal to further his career and achieve his goals. There are those who would call this opportunism, as well as those who might call him a sellout, and that might be a fair judgment for Timati. But no one can deny that, in the face of keeping it real, the most successful hip-hop artists in the United States are, to one extent or another, opportunistic. That Timati has branched out to start his own clothing line, his own production company, his own craft beer and burger franchise, is in line with many of the biggest names in American hip-hop. Timati's alliance with the current Russian power structures has proven quite beneficial for him. All channels are open, and he is free to pursue any project he desires. Noticeably, there is a strong audience for this brand of hip-hop in Russia, and many interesting new artists have aligned themselves with Timati, an artist who represents an antipode in many ways to Noise MC and Oblomov. Best Friend, a rap shot on Red Square with Timati and Sasha Chest, is a good example of how accessibility is tied to politics and Putin in Russia. It's a quite frightening work with racism, sexism, and many homages to Putin, for whom the two rappers made this rap as a birthday present in 2015. Of course, one cannot shoot on Red Square without Putin's signature, so it's clear he signed off on this work. Most frightening to my eyes are the Putin masks that various figures wear in this rap. Black Star's the production company that he started. There's St. Basil's on the left, the Kremlin on the right. This is Red Square. My best friend is President Putin.
Мой белый владыка, кто левый, тот на выход. Эти девочки просились, возьми любую из них на выбор. Считаем бюджет, сидя на столе. Пирамида души всплеск, красиво Россию встречайся и надо. Города говорят об одном, мы поставили новый рекорд. Над головой мой триколор, холоднокровный хляб набор. Быть первыми это наш рок, это мой круг, это мой дом. Все для него и свобода рекой нам под силу. Знаешь про любовь к тебе одной. Мы с вами за него всей страной. Вы знали, он крутой супергерой. Сегодня я игрок, мой друг со мной. Он главный, значит будет все по плану. Ты знаешь, кто твой флагман. Ты знаешь, кто твой флагман. Мистер Президент, с нами наравне. Те, кто в зале здесь все. Мой лучший друг — это президент Путин. Мой лучший друг — это президент Путин.
This is supposed to represent Putin walking to the DJ table, the soundboard, and there he is. It's Putin. Let's party. I thought it'd be interesting just to think of the poetry explicitly, so I'm going to read two excerpts. I'm going to read the third verse of Oblomov's "Жизнь сложная," just to get a sound for the Russian, and then I'll read the second verse of "Лучший друг." So page 7 has the third verse of the Oblomov-Makarevich song that we listened to. And we can just kind of compare these two pieces as poetry, because that's what it is, or trying to be. So this is the one, it says, the English is honestly, I don't really get it, right? Page 7, and here's the Russian. Честно говоря, я не очень в теме. О чем там митингуют и в чем замес? Я работаю над собой. Oh, this is the Marianne Williamson one, right, by the way. Just bear that in mind. I'll start again. Честно говоря, я не очень в теме. О чем там митингуют и в чем замес? Я работаю над собой по новой системе. Телек не смотрю, с алкаши слезь. Политики особо не интересуюсь. Мне до фонаря вся эта фигня. По выходным я нормально тусуюсь. Живу чисто в кайф, живу для себя. И я не понимаю, чего вы все ноете. Не нравится что-то, с себя начни. О какой-то фигне бесконечно спорите, как баба, у которой критические дни. Я за созидание и кайф от лайфа, саморазвитие и личный рост. Испытываю невероятное чувство драйва, в Инстаграм делаю красивый пост. Я за натуропатию, я против апатии, я пью витамины, я мясо не ем. Я к прививкам испытываю антипатию. That's funny. Отказаться от них рекомендую всем. Я считаю, нам нужно позитивно мыслить. Тогда все проблемы сами уйдут. От политики в жизни ничего не зависит. Если ты себя любишь, то все будет гнут. So that's the third verse of Oblomov. And this is the second verse, the next page, page 8. This is Timati. We didn't hear this part. It's verse 2. It's the one in Russian that says the Russian product is the hit of the market again. And I'll read that, just as poetry. Русский продукт снова в цене. Лада Седан, Салют, АвтоВАЗ. Мой лучший друг снова в игре. Мой лучший друг один из нас. Если страна — это клуб, то на танцполе сегодня много людей. Нет фейс-контроля. Здесь все равны. И все остальное решает диджей. Мой лучший друг встает за пульт. Рейтинг растет, качает страна. Девочки просто от него без ума. Мой лучший друг пока не женат. Работаем без перерыва. От понедельника и до субботы. Скажи, кто твой лучший друг? Я сразу скажу, кто ты. Ты знаешь про любовь к тебе одной. Мы с вами за него всей страной. Вы знали, он крутой, супергерой. Сегодня я игрок, мой друг со мной. So I don't know what you think about those two poetry recitations, but rather than opening up to you, I'll finish my talk here and I'll just say I think my 9-year-old could write better Russian poetry than Timothy or Sasha Chest, who have a hard time putting two sentences together. Not exactly the sharpest tools in the shed there. But they've got their Lamborghinis and their Ferraris, so they're doing just fine. Another rap tune from Timati, this time with his friend Alexei Dalmatov, known by his moniker Goof, backfired. On September 7th, just 6 weeks ago, they released the rap Moskva, on YouTube, as an homage to the city on its birthday, which is celebrated in the first week of every September based on its founding in 1147 Common Era. In the video, Timati raps that there are no gay parades in Moscow and how he doesn't go to protest meetings. I'll give a little bit of this here. That's Goof on the right, Timati on the left. It's Moscow State University, Moscow River, a new bridge, I think near Sportivnaya, if I'm not mistaken. St. Peter. Oh, it got better for... It's the Bolshoi Theater of Opera and Ballet. There's Red Square. By the way, we just saw there the cathedral where Pussy Riot took place. And I didn't really want to watch that much more of that. I would rather get to this news clip, which talks about the reaction to this rap Moscow and the fact that they took it down 3 days after they put it up on September 10th. And I'll just do a simultaneous translation here. The clip of rapper Timati and Goof, Moscow, has been taken down from YouTube. By latest statistics, more than 5 million people watched it, and it garnered a record number of dislikes, 1.5 million dislikes, and only 85,000 likes. In the rap, he talks about there are no gay parades in Moscow, how the tiles are going everywhere. He's a fifth-generation Muscovite who does not go to protest meetings. He says that he will eat a burger to the health of Sobyanin. He says that he is not ashamed of his actions, that he's proud of his city. He said that he took down the video because he didn't want to promote negativity. Goof gave his own public apology, and this is Goof. I'm very sorry that I don't watch political situation in my country or in Moscow. I did not know that there were mayoral elections the day before yesterday. And I was very enthusiastic to film this clip about Moscow. Because we're Muscovites. I didn't get a penny, a kopeck, for filming this. So it was a pretty bad backlash, as you could tell. Immediately after they put it up, they took it down. But as I tell my 9-year-old, when you put something on the internet, you can take it down, but you haven't taken it down. Let's just, I found it. Okay. Another rapper who's caused something of a stir recently is Dmitry Kuznetsov, who goes by his moniker Husky. And his lyrics are not directly challenging Putin, but he speaks generally of hardship in Russia, which has put him in the sights of government censors. Here's a sample of Husky's rap. He's from Ulan-Ude, the capital of the Russian Republic of Buryatia, directly north of Mongolia. And this is in handout example 8. And let's listen to a little bit of this rap.
блока. И человечек требуха, в рамках кока. Я пройду как по Манхэттену, по улицам Восточного. От солнечного света не пряча лица отечного. Геки сопят коляской, укачанные рисонами. Все мои одноклассницы рядышком нарисованы по улицам полуденным. Будто по Монпарнасу я позволю обмануть себя. Кэшному оборваться до одури в подворотне. Я буду пухать и дуй, и бомбую водородную рухну тебя на грудь. Моя родина, моя любовь, ты из окна.
It's the chorus here.
Моя родина, моя любовь в каждом окне. Солдаты трущоб улыбаются мне. Моя родина, моя любовь, ты из окна. Моды городов, платье серого сукна. Моя родина, моя любовь, я не попасть.
And there's a second verse. Life is hard in a far-off province like this, and Husky's lyrics reflect these troubles. Consequently, many of his recent concerts have been canceled, and in November 2018, he was detained with other rappers on trumped-up charges of hooliganism. This episode famously made it to Vladimir Putin's annual New Year's Q&A session with the Russian people. He was detained for 12 days in November 2018, and there were many instances of other rappers whose shows get canceled, and there is some detention always. And so it made it into the very famous end-of-year press conference that Putin holds. It's entirely staged, if you've seen any of it or even just read about it. And it goes on for 3 or 4 hours. Edward Snowden famously Skyped in to this press conference 2, 3, 4 years ago, can't remember. But there's, it's just a photo, big, long photo op. And I'll do a translation here for this one too, because it's very interesting that not even a year ago, here's Vladimir Putin talking about the detention of Russian rappers right after Husky was released from detention. With respect to the detention of these rappers, I agree with you. There's no point. It's just going to have a backlash effect. There's no good thing about that. Also, there's nothing good in, as you said, if they sing with profanities, let them sing, fine. I'm going to stop because I forgot to mention something funny here, which is a side note, but he's about to mention this famous conductor. His name is Yuri Temirkanov. And I'm a cellist, and I trained in St. Petersburg. I was able to meet Yuri Temirkanov a couple of times in the 90s in Russia and St. Petersburg. And I was never able to play in orchestra, but I know many people who played for him. He's an inveterate alcoholic, and everybody would say, when he is drunk, he's the greatest conductor ever, but heaven forbid you play for him when he's sober, because he cannot keep a beat. And I just thought that was the funniest thing. But it doesn't matter, of course. These people are legendary, and you're not supposed to know those inside stories about them. And Putin is about to mention Temirkanov. So I'm going to go back, and now I'll kind of rewind 30 seconds and play this again with my translation. Oops. With respect to the detention of these rappers, I agree with you. There's no point. It's just going to have a backlash effect. There's no good thing in detaining them. Also, there's no good in, as you were saying, if they sing with profanities, fine, let them sing. Recently, you saw at the anniversary of Temirkanov, he was 80 years old. He said a simple thing, nothing special, but nevertheless true. Art exists not to condone or appease the lowest common denominator, the low profile of culture. Culture exists in order to lift the culture of people. Of course, to grab and catch and punish these rappers, it's not true. We shouldn't do that. So he talked about that directly on the heels of this detention of Husky. The final rapper, which I'll discuss briefly, is Miron Fyodorov, aka Oxymiron. And there he is. 1703 is the founding of St. Petersburg, the city of his birth, and the city he moved back to from England about 5-6 years ago. And there he is with Syrian-American battle rapper Disaster, after a very famous English language battle rap in Los Angeles. So when Oxymiron was 9, his family immigrated to Germany, and when he was 15, they moved to England, where he ultimately got a bachelor's degree in English literature at Oxford. Thus, Oxymiron is fluent in 3 languages, and he raps in all 3. When he was about 30, he moved back to his native St. Petersburg, and he's currently one of the most famous rappers in Russia, garnering 22,000 fans at his most recent stadium concert. But Oxymiron is most famous as a battle rapper, and judging by his views on YouTube, he's the most famous battle rapper in the world. Battle rap is a distinct art form, and it is rare that a commercial artist like him excels in the art form. Here's a clip from a famous battle with Slava KPSS, which at more than 43 million views, some say is the most watched rap battle in the history of the genre. I won't be translating this one. It's a little saucy, but so you can just hear the Russian, and just if you have never watched a battle rap, well, you can see a minute or two of this battle rap.
По итогам жеребьевки начинает Оксимирон. Первый раунд, пошумим, блядь!
Я здесь чисто по фану. Поглумиться над слабым. Ты же вылез из мамы под мой дис на Бабана. Обличительный пафос — это пшик против папы. Эти рифмы писал пьяный крипл под спайсом. Ты смешной, слишком длинный, откровенно нескладный. У тебя телосложение, как у беременной цапли. Непропорционально, как твой хайп и твой вклад в рэп. Не облако в штанах, ты лишь мода, как клауд рэп на пару сезонов. Где твой чокер, а чё? Ты же не хочешь выйти из моды, словно шмотки волчок. Тот-то еще, тот-то еще. Год назад тебе дал мощный толчок, одним твитом стали тем, кто нынче тебя смоет толчок. Это ирония судьбы. Не правда ли удивительно? Прежде чем кого-то батлить, я сначала должен хвалить его, чтоб вас убедить, что он мог бы стать победителем. Чтоб МС завафлить, вы сперва должны полюбить его. И я сработал на ура. Я знал, что год ему нужна фигура Джокера, что против меня полная луна взошла. Город за него, в колоде новый персонаж. Но я сам себе режиссер, я тебя создал и снял. Я Брюс Уэйн и Кристофер Нолан в одном. Роли готовы давно. Твоя прописана от и до. Мне был нужен враг, вуаля. Ты опереточный злодей. У тебя отклеился ус. Да, ты Джокер, но в моем рукаве. Попрей себе туз и подготовься. Аркан предоставляет ночлег. И откуда у тебя эти раны, знает мой член. Ведь...
Yep, no translation there, folks. So a brief conclusion, that nationalism is prominent in Putin's Russia is not in question. This nationalistic environment and the backlash against it affects rap in Russia in various ways. As a poetic art form, rap is scrutinized to a far greater extent than other art forms. Also, the authorities realize that it is wildly popular. By most accounts, the most popular music in the country, and they can see its influence on its citizens. The sad thing about being a rapper in Putin's Russia lies in the fact that one must choose sides. Either be with Putin or against him, that is, be a friend or an enemy. To do neither is, to a large degree, to wither away in obscurity. Of course, there are many talented rappers who practice their craft without getting that involved with politics, but the fact that everyone must take a stance on Russia's present power structure is lamentable. It's hard to say how this will all play out after Putin's tenure is over, but there's no doubt that rap will continue to thrive in Russia and play an integral part in its future. Thank you.